Hello, everybody. Welcome to Towns of 505. Today, me and Briar will be continuing our series through Deep Purple. And today, it's going to be another album that I'm excited to review. I'm not going to go further into it. It is a divisive album amongst Deep Purple fans, and that is Come Taste the Band. How are you doing this? For me, it's 6 o'clock where I am. Daylight savings where I live, so it's dark right now. So to me,
Right.
I consider it to be the evening time because it's dark already. So for me, how are you doing this evening?
Yep, it's doing all right. Of course, for me, it's still afternoon, but everything's been expecting a nice quiet afternoon, so it should be nice and pleasant here.
That's good to hear. And of course, like I usually like to ask, do you have any background information?
Yes. So, well, we got a ton to talk about because we're entering the only album of the Mark IV lineup. And we all know because Richie Blackmore had left the band after the Stormbringer tour. And so now they're kind of left in uncharted territory. So John and Ian considered calling it quits after that, but it was David and Glenn actually who convinced them to continue on. Actually, David suggested, how about we just go on not as Deep Purple? How about let's change the name? And so he kind of came up with two suggestions. One of them, just Purple, just drop the deep part, and the other name, Good Company. Yeah, there's a bad company, so why not be a good company? Yeah, they were quickly denied. And so they just decided, let's just keep the Deep Purple name. And they held many auditions on who could possibly replace Richie Blackmore. And after many auditions, they finally settled with a guy by the name of Tommy Bolin. And Tommy, he was kind of a up and coming sort of guitar figure at this point. He was in a couple bands. I think his most notable band prior was that he was in James Gang after Joe Walsh had. I think it was after Joe Walsh. I think, or I can't remember. I don't know the timeline exactly, but he was pretty well established. And actually, it was 70 same in the same kind of same in 75. He had a solo album he released, which I have. It's actually pretty good, actually. Um, but they thought he was the best option, so they went with him. And funny enough, Tommy was not that familiar with Deep Purple by this point. He was more of like he kind of came from more of a more jazz, blues, more classical sort of background. So Deep Purple wasn't really in his listening wheelhouse. But after he got to know the band, they all got along really well. And so they just decided to bring him on. And after Richie's kind of more like authoritarian, kind of really his ego, they thought Tommy was a breath of fresh air. um and the recording process went relatively okay for the album. Of course, drugs was really becoming apparent, and the biggest offender was, of course, Glenn Hughes and Tommy himself, who were both really into cocaine. And the reason, and because of the drug use, you'll kind of, if you notice, Glenn is not really as present vocally. Because before on the past two albums, Glenn and David were always kind of singing together. Not so much here on this album. Um, but besides that, the recording went well. Album came out um, November 7th, 1975. So it turned 50 just recently. Like literally yesterday, it turned 50 years old. Um, there we go. Timed that really good. Um, so it was time to tour. And that's where disaster was really beginning to happen, because to many people the tour was a shit show. Um, One of the reasons, of course, Richie's no longer in the band, so of course there's a ton of people complaining about that. And it also didn't help that Tommy was really made it adamant he didn't want to play any he didn't want to play. Well, they still played Deep Purple songs, but he did not play it like how Richie would do it. He would completely do his own thing, which many fans weren't really happy with that. Um, and also the fact that again the drugs were still in full swing, and because of the drugs, Glenn and Tommy were very inconsistent live, and so their their show reviews would start to kind of take a dip. They were getting more mixed to negative reviews, which is kind of alarming because Deep Purple were once this highly regarded live act, but now they're kind of fumbling at this point. And the tour ended in March of 1976. And with all this disaster and the bad press they're getting, this is when John and Ian finally put their foot down and say, you know what? I think we're done here. I think Deep Purple has run its course. I think we should just call it here. And that was it. The band would basically disband after this period. And they would stay dormant for quite a while until we get to 1984. And thus ending this mark in their history. As for Tommy, he would go on to release another solo album, which I also have. Again, still pretty good album, I would say. And of course, not long after he released that solo album, he would eventually die due to a drug overdose in December of 76. He was only 25 years old. And that pretty much is it. Even today, this album is still kind of has a mixed reception. Again, with no Richie, and also the funk is even more prominent, I would say, than on Stormbringer. But yeah, some people like it, some people hate it. So yeah, it still has a very mixed opinion. But there's pretty much all the background info regarding this album.
Okay, well, again, love to hear your background info. I mean, that whole thing with them trying to change their name at one point. Thank goodness that got declined. I can't imagine them being called just Purple. Like, hey, let's listen to some Purple or Good Company. Like, both awful names. But what do you think about the album, though?
Yeah, the album. I haven't heard the album too many times, but each time I've heard it, I've always came out really enjoying it. I do think it's a very strong album. Again, regarding Tommy's playing, I'll talk more about as we go, but I think he did a really good job. I think I really enjoy his guitar playing. It is pretty different from Richie, but I think it fits what they're going for on this album. And vocally, I still think it's pretty strong, even though there's not as much Glenn. I still think it's pretty strong vocally when you do hear both of them. And yeah, I just think it's a pretty strong album. I do think it's fairly underrated. I think it definitely deserves a lot more, some respect. They're trying to carry on, and I just think there's some really good material on here.
Well, I enjoyed it. I've heard this album a grand total of 2 times. I liked it the first time, and I really like it now. I think it's a really underrated album. Definitely not my recommend to diehard Deep Purple fans who've been listening to their Mark II lineup, want to listen to something new. I definitely recommend this album. Very, very underrated though. But without further ado, let's get to the first track of the album. First one being "Coming Home" with David Coverdale. That's a lead vocalist.
Yeah. So this song's kind of nothing's too different right now. Like it's a kind of you get a little blends of their typical hard rock sound, but it's also a nice way to kind of introduce Tommy. It has a very dramatic intro, which definitely sets the tone, but then it just goes into this very fun, very upbeat rock number. Again, has some good rock, some very fast piano playing from John, which was very cool. And of course, David is doing a great job vocally. And Tommy like I said, this was a great introduction to him. Like he is all over. Like you hear all his guitar parts on here, and just what makes him stand out a bit from Richie is that Tommy tends to add a little bit more effects to the guitar. Richie's kind of more raw, more in the moments. But Tommy was a bit more perfectionist. He kind of took his time. So you get many different styles on here. I think it works really well. And again, Ian's drumming just top notch. So I just think it's a very strong way to start the album.
And I certainly will agree. This is a really great way to open up the album. Like you said, Briar, kind of opens up like kind of dramatically, like a cool little intro, but then it goes right into the song. Nice fast paced rocker, really good vocals from David. I think he's a pretty good vocalist. I think he's pretty underrated. I don't think he doesn't get the love that of course, their big vocalist in the
Mhm.
Mark II lineup is. But I I think he has a really powerful voice. I think it really works on this song, and yeah, what a strong way to open up this album. I really enjoyed it. Now we're gonna go to the next song, and next song is Lady Luck. Same vocals, by the way.
Yes. So this is actually a song that Tommy brought in. Um, this is actually a song he actually performed. He actually had for a while now, and he would actually perform it by himself. So this song was not new to him. But he just brought it to the band, and the band thought it was good, so they just brought it in. And here we go, the first song where the funk is definitely in full effect here. There's a definitely has a good funk sort of groove, and the bass playing. I mean, when it comes to funk, there's got to be some good bass. And Glenn, even though he's not singing, he's still providing a really good bass line for this track. Um, and David's kind of doing a good job vocally on this track. He does funk fairly well. Of course, when he would go on the Whitesnake, he wouldn't really do funk again. He kind of kept it more straightforward, but he did it fairly okay. But besides that, it's not one of my favorite songs on the album. I still think it's a pretty decent follow up, but out of the songs here, it's probably the song I kind of go back to the least. But it still has some good moments on here. I still think it's a pretty strong track.
I actually really enjoy this song. Um, I don't know. It starts out slow, but it kind of I think he gets picks it up too. Um, I think his vocals are also really really good. On here. Um, I love the musicianship on here. To me, this is one of my favorite songs of the album. This is definitely a top five on the album for me. I actually really really enjoyed it. I could see where you're coming from. I don't know why I've always enjoyed the song. And I looking at the singles that was released on this album. One was released in Japan. You keep on
Hmm.
moving, and one is getting tighter. So there
Yep.
were two singles on this album. Um, I don't know how well they did. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia.
Probably they probably didn't do not that well.
I would assume so. I mean, one was just released in Japan, but
Hmm.
um, I enjoy the song though. But speaking of getting tighter, that's the next song in the album, and that is sung by Hughes.
Yeah,
So
finally, Glenn's here. And yes, because it's Glenn, he really ups the funk on this one. Um, and yes, it's very funky, but I actually do think I actually prefer this over Lady Luck for me. Definitely is a bit more faster paced, which I guess was the problem I had with Lady Luck. Maybe it was a bit too slow, but here this one's a bit more fast paced. So it was a bit more to my liking. You have a nice guitar riff that Tommy has on here, which I thought was pretty good. Um, and his guitar work in general in this track was very nice. Some good bass playing, especially during the bridge section. I think that was a nice moments. But yeah, I had a fun time with this one. That's pretty much the song in general. I think this thing is pretty good fun. So yeah, this was a pretty good one.
I was muted. I love the song. I think this is a great song. I definitely agree. This is definitely one of my favorites on the album. I mean, I love Jack Hughes. I mean, what's his name again?
Glenn.
Glenn Hughes. Sorry, thinking about a hockey player. Glenn Hughes. Maybe they're really, who knows? Glenn Hughes. Yeah, I love Glenn Hughes vocals on here. I mean, as you know, me and Briar. Well, if you don't know, me and Briar did a deep dive on Black Sabbath. He did a whole album of vocals for Black Sabbath, and if you watched our review then, you know I like his vocals then, and I like his vocals now, especially in the 70s. We get to hear him do funk. It's interesting, I mean, I'm used to hearing him do stuff with Black Sabbath on that one album, with the harder stuff. So hearing
Yeah.
him do funk, it's interesting, and I think it's actually I like it. It's probably why it's one of my favorites. I mean,
Yeah, I've read his solo work is definitely more funk than anything.
yeah, so it's safe to say he's more towards the funk side of things, which
Yeah.
I respect. I like funk. I either I'm very hit or miss with funk, but sometimes I really enjoy funk. Sometimes I'm like, maybe not. But I do really enjoy this song though. Now we get to track 4 in the album, Dealer, where we get Coverdale and Ballin doing vocals together.
Yeah, so obviously this is a kind of a drug related song, and I've read that it maybe, of course, David wrote the lyrics, so it may be is David kind of calling Hughes out to saying, okay, get your act together, just lay off the drugs, please. So and again, I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. But now we're getting back into the more heavier rock sort of sound. So we got a nice guitar riff yet again. And I want to point out something that I definitely noticed by this point, and I noticed that John's organ playing definitely a lot more subdued than on previous albums. I don't think you hear it as much. Like you hear the piano, you still hear his piano, and you get a little bit of keyboard. But in terms of like that big, heavy Hammond organ that he would do on the Mark II, it's definitely very much not really there. But he's still there. He's still providing some good piano playing and keyboards there. But I just wanted to point that out. That was something I noticed on this album. But again, it has good solid rock beats. David's belting it out. Good guitar solo from Tommy. And yeah, this is the only time on the album where Tommy takes a stab at the mic. And of course, he does do his own singing on his solo albums. And so he's a fine singer. I wouldn't say he's like amazing by no stretch. But it was kind of interesting to hear his voice. I didn't hate it, but it's not like. But of course, I'm like, just let David do all the singing. I think you're fine just as the guitar player, but still not a bad moment. Definitely memorable. But as a whole, it's a pretty solid rock song. Don't have too much else to say. But yeah, it's a pretty solid.
Okay. Well, for me, I thought this was decent. I wasn't. I thought I liked it. It said I liked. I mean, I said I liked that. I put the heart next to it. I liked it. Apparently, I liked it a lot more than I do now. I think it's just okay now. It's not terrible. Kind of like where you were talking about. Yeah, just stick to guitar. I think his vocals kind of bring the song down just a tiny bit. I don't think to me, it's not as good as the first 3 songs on the album. It's fine, nothing horrible. Kind of like the last album. There's like nothing horrible on this album. I think, I think it's just okay, this song, but that's just me. But now we get to the last song on side 1. I Need Love.
All right, David Coverdale with the lyrics, talking about his favorite topic, sex. And of course, once he gets to Whitesnake, that's pretty much almost exclusively what he sings about. But that note aside, I really enjoyed this song. I thought it was a nice highlight. Really, what did it for me was because I really liked the vocal melody, especially during the verses. I think the verses sound really good. Again, nice solid groove on here. Good chorus and the guitar textures that Tommy's putting in, really very nice. And what's interesting, this had female backing singers on it, which was definitely different. And I could not find who was actually providing the backing vocals, but whoever they are, I think it was a nice touch. I think it was a nice addition. And just overall, I just kind of really vibed with this one. So yeah, I really liked this one quite a bit. It was definitely a highlight.
I agree. This is a fantastic way to close out side one. Um, nice melody, great. Say another great rocking song. Um, it's very straight to the point. I need love.
Yeah.
Surprised this wasn't a single. I feel like
Yeah.
this has like single vibes to it. Like, I mean,
I would
this
say
sounds like a
so.
single. What's that?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. I agree with that.
I mean, I don't see this going like charting that high, but
Right.
definitely a song that I could see like getting to like number like 78 on the charts.
Yeah,
But
something like
still, I
that.
mean, sell pretty decently well. But I mean, I mean, of the two singles, I mean, like I said, one of them was specifically released in Japan, and one was released in the United States. So two of them weren't even like worldwide singles. Two non-worldwide singles. I feel like this would have been the song that I would have pushed as a single, but who knows? What they were thinking at the time. Releasing these singles, but yeah, I think this is a great way to close out the first side of the record. Now we move on to the second side of the record. We flip the record over and we get to Drifter with the same vocals.
Okay, so this is a pretty decent track. It was kind of a decent way to start side two. It's kind of going back to more traditional rock. Again, the riff is pretty good. It's a good headbanger. You can kind of bang your head to this one. And drum's pretty good. But just I didn't have too much to say about it. It's good in the moments, but I don't know if I'm gonna be going back to that song by itself. It's kind of more towards the bottom end of in terms of ranking these songs. But again, it's not bad. It's still a pretty nice sort of rock song.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I mean, I completely forgot this song existed. I thought
Mhm.
maybe I'm like, man, does this song suck? But then I'm like, no, I actually like this song. But
Yeah.
it's one of those songs like you said, like I kind of forget about it after. I mean, for me, I forget about it after it's over. Um, but I enjoy it when it's I do quite enjoy it. You know, while it's on, but it's not like a song that I necessarily remember. It's fine, but it's not like one of their best songs. So that definitely one of my least favorites on the album, but still, I still think it's a solid song though. We move on to the next song on the album, Love Child.
Okay, so get another one of the more rockers, and what made this I do think this is better than the last one. It's definitely a lot more memorable, and it really comes down to the fact that John is definitely a lot more prominent. His keyboard is definitely more up front, which I like a lot. You still get a nice guitar riff from Tommy, and I think the bridge section was really cool. That's where John really gets to kind of come back and does a little solo. It's a nice groove to it. But again, it's not nothing overtly amazing. It's just a pretty another one of those very solid rock songs. And yeah, it's still pretty nice.
For me, this is kind of like the last song where I enjoyed it, but it's a song that I won't go back to. Like you said, it's a nice groove. Like it gets your head moving. Like this is pretty good. This is nice, but it's not like something that like I would necessarily like go back to. When I'm going through Deep Purple songs on their own. It's okay. It's fine. I'm gonna be honest. This is my least favorite song on the album. It's again, it's not bad though. Like again, we've yet. It's been a while since I've gone to a Deep Purple song where I'm like, wow, this is really bad. So I mean, good for you, Mark IV lineup. Well, that's one thing that the Mark IV lineup could say. They haven't made a bad song. So
Yeah.
congratulations. I mean, yes, you only have one album, but still, no bad songs. That's a good thing. But Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy this song, even though it is my least favorite song. It's just not something that I remember or will go back to. It's kind of like how I described Before They Make Me Run by the Rolling Stones. So to me, this is the Before They Make Me Run on the album, as some people would know. I've been saying that a lot about some songs. But all right, let's go to the next song on the album. It's it's on Wikipedia. It counts as two tracks. It says This Time Around, which is sung by Glenn Hughes, and then apparently the next song, O to G, is just an instrumental. So
Yeah, they're kind of these days they're kind of lumped together because they do
yeah,
they do blend into each other. So I do have them at together here, but yeah, even people who aren't a fan of this lineup, they can most people can say that this is usually as the highlight track. Like if they're gonna pick one song, then people usually go refer to this one, and I kind of agree with that because I think this is a really, really excellent track. So the first section this time around, it's basically a piano ballad pretty much, and yeah, we have Glenn on vocals on here, and again, this is probably this is where he aside from Burn, I think this song really showcases Glenn's vocals the best throughout his entire run in the band so far because it's just very soulful, very melodic, and just very fits the song perfectly well. And again, he's still providing some bass in there, which is definitely very great. Of course, John's piano just really lovely, and there's like a little bit of I think there might be a mellotron in there. I think if I remember correctly, but just a really lovely sort of section. But then once you get to O to G, which is the instrumental section, like that's where it kind of starts to rock out a lot more. And you're probably wondering what the heck does G stand for? It's actually supposed to be a tribute to a composer that both John and Tommy were both fans of, and the composer was George Gershwin. And so there was kind of like their tributes, ode. It's supposed to be a play on words. But yeah, really cool instrumental section. The drums really kick it off with a very heavy guitar riff. And it's just really great soloing from John and Tommy. And they're even playing around with time signatures for a little bit. And yeah, I think I would agree. I think this is definitely the kind of the epic on the album. Um, Definitely a lot of great musicianship and really good composition. This is definitely a highlight for sure.
yeah, this is definitely making my top five on the album. Really, really great song. I mean, I'll talk about both since they're technically two tracks, but I'll in my ranking I'll include them as
Yeah.
together. First off, the first half this time around, whoa. That's all I gotta say. Whoa. Like this isn't the funk that he did on his first song, but this isn't the hard rock that he did with Black Sabbath. This it's like completely different. It's like something I've never heard from him before. And even re-listening to this album after I think it's been a year since I've listened to this album the first time. Even a year later, I'm like, whoa, what is this? I don't remember this, but I'm really liking it. Wow, this is a really great. That first half is really really good, and it blends really really well into O to G. Really great instrumental. Um, Definitely like a great epic on the album. I could see why this is the song that the Deep Purple fans would consider to be the big highlight on the album. I mean, this most definitely should have been a single for them. I mean, this was really cool, 6-minute epic for sure. I mean, a certain other band would release a 6-minute song epic around this time.
Yep.
Um, and we know how that song ended up. So, it wasn't too outrageous to be releasing long songs at this point. So, yeah, what an outstanding song. I'm so glad we could agree on that. Well, speaking of singles, we move on to the single that was released only in Japan. So, Japanese. If you're Japanese and you're watching this and you understand me, What do you think about this song? If you're a Deep Purple fan growing up, you keep on moving.
All right, so this is the only song on the entire album where Glenn and David are singing with each other, um, and it's a very good closing song. It has a very eerie beginning, but then the bass comes in that starts it, and then the cymbals and the subtle keyboard are kind of creeping in, and then it finally starts to get a bit heavier as the song progresses. It's definitely nice to hear David and Glenn kind of sing together one more time because this would be the last time they would sing together on a Deep Purple album. Um, yeah, it's pretty fitting that this is the closer then. But yeah, getting John's back once again with his organ, very great. And the closing solo from Tommy, I think, closes the album on a very good note. So I really enjoyed this song. Like, I can kind of see I kind of see why they chose this for the single. Um, but still, it's a very nice one. Think it was a very nice highlight.
Okay. Well, for me, I thought this was a really great way to close out the album. This did make my top five. Definitely another big highlight on the album. I mean, there's like six songs that are contending to be my top five, but sadly, one song will be left out. I will let you know what my honorable mention is. But yeah, I thought this was a outstanding way to close out the album. I mean, in my opinion, I think the last song would have been a better album closer for me.
Yeah, true.
The instrumental closing it out, but oh well. They chose to close this out. But still, really great album closer, despite that. But yeah, really, really great closer. But what's your top five gonna be?
Right, my top five. Number 5, I have Getting Tighter. Number 4, You Keep On Moving. Number 3, I Need Love. 2, Coming Home, and number 1 is This Time Around / Ode to G.
Okay. My honorable mention is Coming Home. My number 5, Lady Luck. Number 4, I'm gonna go with You Keep On Moving. Number 3, Getting Tighter. Number 2, This Time Around, Ode to G. My favorite song on the album is I Need Love. It's like the most straightforward on the album, but man, I can't get it out of my head.
That's good.
I need love.
Mhm.
But what are you gonna rate this album? 1 through 10.
All right. So, yeah. So, again, I know there's going to be deeper fans who are going to disagree with our rankings because people are going to be like, oh, your ranking is too high. But I do think it's a very underrated album. And I will say, I actually do think it's a bit stronger than Stormbringer. I don't know. Again, I think Tommy really adds a whole other dimension to the sound. And I really enjoyed his playing. And again, David still sounds great. Glenn, even though not as prominent as before, still sounds really good. And just and there's always a highlight when he came on. It's still a shame there's not as much John Lord, but when he was present, it was definitely also very cool. And of course, Ian Pace, not much else to say. I mean, he's been solid throughout his entire run so far. But in terms of a rating, I can't remember what I gave Stormbringer already. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think I'll stick with the same score. I think I'll give it a 9 as well. Again, even though I do prefer it over Stormbringer, again, there's still some songs that are just fine. Like Dealer and Drifter, like those songs are in particular were definitely not the strongest. And they're kind of more like your straightforward rock, which is not bad, but still you're kind of it's not songs you're going to remember constantly. But I still a very strong 9 out of 10. Very, very good album.
Well, I'm gonna copy your score because that's also my score. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Um, there's like a few songs that they're good, but they're not like they're very unmemorable in the long run. Like Dealer, Drifter, Love Child, like those are my 3 least favorite songs on the album, but they're still decent though. I still get some good kicks out of them when I do listen to the album as a whole. But they're not like songs that I would ultimately go back to. But man, this is a strong album. I don't get how this is so divisive. I always thought, I mean, when I first, I think I gave this either a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10 when I first heard it. Obviously my score dropped since then, but still, when I heard Briar was like, "Yeah, that's a divisive album," I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, I really enjoyed this album from start to finish. But to each their own. If you're not a fan of this album, please leave in the comments on why you dislike the album. I mean, besides Richie not being in there, I'd like to see some more reasons besides that because I genuinely don't understand how some people don't like this album. But if you're a Deep Purple fan, please in the comments below give me your reasons why you don't like it. If you do like it, please give me the reasons why you do like it. I love the 3 comments, but rarely getting comments. But until then, Briar, you have any final thoughts before we close out?
So yeah, I just want to quickly say, like, again, this is the end of their initial run, and I say that it was definitely, so far it's been a ton of fun, kind of going through this period, especially talking about this particular, the Mark III and Mark IV, because again, they don't get talked about as much, which makes for interesting discussions. And yeah, this is again reinforcing that this is why I like Deep Purple. Just a really good band in general. And I'm definitely curious on how I'm going to feel about the next phase of Deep Purple when we get to 84 onward, because we're going to see a lot more lineup changes, a lot more Mark lineups. And so it should be interesting to revisit some of those again.
Yeah, for sure. Looking back at it, looks like I really enjoyed Perfect Strangers. So looking forward to reviewing that
Yeah,
album.
that album's usually seen pretty highly.
Is it? I believe is it the reunion of the Mark II lineup? If I'm
Yes,
remembering.
it's the reunion.
So let's see how that turns out. So we do get a pretty hefty like the time between like 75 to 84. So we get 9 years between albums. So
Yeah, and there's a lot that happened in between that time, but we'll talk about that next time.
I could tell it's gonna be pretty long background info for you, but looking forward to that. Until then, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, leave your comments below. Until next time, rock on and see you guys next time. So long.